is the evolutionary strategy that favors the reproductive success of an organ's relatives, even at a cost to the organism's own survival and reproduction. Kin altruism can look like altruistic behavior. Okay, that's why it was also searched for. It was evolution is driven by kin selection. Okay. So I want to go more into that, so let's go to the Wikipedia if it lets me. Guys, it is being so slow right now, it's actually really crazy. It's so crazy. No, but it's been fine lately, but now it's just being really slow right now. So, kin selection. Hamilton's rule redirects here. For physical principles, see Hamilton's principle. Okay. Kin selection is the instance, I'm on the Wikipedia now, it is the instance of inclusive fitness, which combines the number of offspring produced with the number of an individual, can ensure the production of by supporting others such as siblings. Okay, wait, I need to process that. Okay. Charles Darwin, yeah, I thought that he would be involved with this. He discussed the concept of kin selection in his 1859 book on the origin of species, where he reflected on the puzzle of sterile social insects, such as honeybees, which leave reproduction to their mothers, arguing that a selection benefit two related organisms would allow the evolution of a trait that confers the benefit but destroys an individual at the same time. Okay. Oh, Hamilton. In 1964, W.D. Hamilton popularized the concept of... Oh, wait. Okay, sorry, I should just go back. R.A. Fisher in 1930 and J.B.S. Haldane in 1932 set out the mathematics of kin selection, with Haldane famously joking that he would willingly die for two brothers or 8 cousins. In 1964, W.D. Hamilton popularized the concept in the major advanced in the mathematical treatment of the phenomenon by George R. Price, which has become known as Hamilton's rule. In the same year, John Maynard Smith used the term kin selection for the first time. Okay. I want to know more about this. Experimental studies in humans. Yes, that's what I want to know. Let's go to that. Experimental studies, interviews, and surveys. Interviews of several hundred women in Los Angeles show that while non-kin friends who were willing to help one another, their assistance was far more likely to be reciprocal. The largest amounts of non-reciprocal help, however, were reportedly provided by kin. Really? Like people who you're related to. Additionally, more closely related kin were considered more likely sources of assistance than distant kin. Okay. So, like a great cousin, for example, not as likely to help you out than, like, your sister, but a friend is more likely to help you out than your sister. Interesting. Similarly, several surveys of American college students found that individuals were more likely to incur the cost of assisting kin when a high probability that relatedness and benefit will be greater than the cost existed. Participants' feelings of helpfulness were stronger toward family members than non-kin. Okay. Additionally, participants were found to be most willing to help those individuals most closely related to them. Interpersonal relationships between kin in general were more supportive and less Machiavellian than those between non-kin. In one experiment, the longer participants from both the UK and the South African Zulus held a painful skiing position, the more money or food was presented to a kin relative. Participants repeated the experiment for individuals of different relatedness, parents and siblings, at R equals 0.5. Grandparents, nieces, and nephews at R equals 0.25. The results show that participants held a position for longer intervals, the greater the degree of relatedness between themselves and those receiving the reward. So for those of you who didn't get that, like, you would have to hold a painful position, skiing position, and the longer you held that, islets of Ifaluk determined that food sharing was more common among people from the same islet, possibly because the degree of relatedness between inhabitants of the same islet would be higher than relatedness between inhabitants of different islets. I mean, that would make sense. Violence in families is more likely when step-parents are present, and that genetic relationship is associated with a softening to conflict in people's evident valuations of themselves and if others are systematically related to the party's reproductive values. Wait, what? Numerous studies suggest how inclusive fitness may work amongst different peoples, such as the Yaquana of southern Venezuela, the Gypsies of Hungary, and the doomed Donner Party of the United States. Now it's talking about human social patterns. Behaviors that help a genetic relative are favored by natural selection, is what was early on thought by early human sociobiologists. However, many evolutionary psychologists recognize that this common shorthand formulation is inaccurate. Okay, so that's not always the case. So it feels like it's kind of contradicting itself. It's like, more so like with relatives and humans are, it depends on what it is. If there's a reward for the other person, it's more likely that, but I don't know, because they didn't do the reward test for friends. I wonder if the friends would do more for, like, it depends, because nowadays people are more estranged from family than back in the day. People are in better situations to be able to, like, move and such. Hamilton said altruistic or selfish acts are only possible when a suitable social object is available. In this sense, behaviors are conditional from the start. See, my boyfriend and I have talked about this too, because one of the questions, like, there's like, if you look up philosophical questions online, like, there's a bunch of websites that list a lot, and one of the questions that we've talked about the question was, do people do things for the kindness, or do you, how do I explain this? Do people do things for others so that they expect something in return? Do you expect something in return for doing something, and should you expect it? And I think you shouldn't expect it. I think most people do things for other people so that they can get something in return, or like later on it's like, hey, you owed me for the time I did this for you. I think that's what most people do it. Even I can say I used to be like that. Nowadays if I do something, I just do it out of the kindness of my own heart, and that but that doesn't mean everybody's like that. It's okay if people think that, as long as it's not so toxic where it's like, if I do this, you need to have it be reciprocated. It's common for people to expect it just because we live in at least in America, it's like it's a society where you need to, like, there needs to be a balance in that. But anyway, I was talking about implants. It's saying a lot of scientific words. I was talking about germination. Sorry, it's being really slow. I don't have enough time to go on a different article, so I'm just going to talk more about what it's showing here. But does they see also Darwinian anthropology group? I've heard anthropology is a really hard subject and degree to obtain, but anthropology actually sounds very interesting. I actually have always thought that I could get like a master's or PhD degree in religious studies and like learn about all religions. I personally think that all religions, oh my god, probably is a word too. I feel like a word for it, not coexist, but I feel like all religions stem from the same concept for the most part. I don't know about Buddhism. Like, I'm talking about religions where it talks about like higher powers. Buddhism is different in that sense. I know there are others that are more similar to Buddhism than organized religion, such as, and Buddhism doesn't even consider itself a species over another for like survival, basically. But it's found in humans, animals, and in plants, especially I think more so insects, but it is involved with plants. And it's basically